And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning at KIDO Talk Radio. Coming up, more of your phone calls at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Joining us now, a criminal justice expert, Kevin Ring. Talk a little bit about mandatory minimums. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
With a name like Kevin, you're bound to have great content this morning.
I'm just unbelievably bright, so I hear that's the par for the course.
Kevin Ring is the president of Families Against Mandatory Minimums, the author of Scalia Dissents, Writings of the Supreme Court's Wittiest, Most Outspoken Justice. Boy, we sure do miss him.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt about it, especially in a time where our debate is so petty and small, and he was such a big thinker.
Indeed. So let's talk a little bit about mandatory minimums. Most people seem to maybe like this, Kev, just based on the fact that it takes the judge's decisions out of the decision out of the judge's hands, based on the fact that you might have a judge, maybe have some sympathy for someone, maybe perhaps say, well, you know, they really didn't mean it, and give someone a lighter sentence. What's wrong with that?
Well, yes, I do think it's predicated on the idea that every once in a while you hear of a judge who gives a sentence that is somewhat lenient, and then we say, well, we need these mandatory minimums. And then thousands of people receive punishments that are excessive, and we don't hear about those, or we don't think about those unless it happens to someone we know or somebody we love, and then we realize what's wrong with it. And that's why you're seeing states across the country start to reform their mandatory sentences. Look, at the federal level, we have mandatory sentences that have sent people away for 10, 20, 30 years for drug offenses that no one thinks are appropriate. And, you know, the idea that, you know, there's judges out there who are giving slaps on the wrist, I mean, I think that's a popular cultural image. I don't think it happens that often. And the fact that a person or two gets mercy or gets leniency when it might not be deserved is not necessarily a good argument for giving everybody else these punitive sentences that bear no relation to their crime.
What are some of the most extreme examples, Kevin?
Well, in Florida, which has some of the worst mandatory sentencing laws in the country, there's a woman who, a confidential informant, made her sell 35 pills. She was taking prescription drugs, and hit her up to sell 35 pills. She sold him 35 pills. It was her first time offense. She got 25 years in prison. There was a woman who was involved in a crack cocaine conspiracy out of desperation, she was wrong to do it. She should have been punished, should have gone to jail, but she was involved for 1 month selling crack cocaine and was sentenced to 30 years in prison because she was held accountable for everything that the kingpin and everybody else sold. That's the problem with how these conspiracy laws work, is that it doesn't matter what your small role is. Because of mandatory minimums in conspiracy law, you're held responsible for what everybody does. And that's really an un-American concept. I mean, I think we should be punished as an individual.
We're going to create a new ban.
Your mistake. And what happens is instead you get these one-size-fits-all blunderbuss sentences.
Well, and it seems like the little guy always gets hosed over.
Well, the reason that happens is because prosecutors, I mean, despite what people tell you, these are mandatory minimums. They're not really mandatory. They're only mandatory if they get charged, and then the judge has to give them. The prosecutor can drop those charges. And so what they do is they get the kingpin or the high-level person in, say, a fraud conspiracy to cooperate, and then they give them the shorter sentence. Well, the little guy doesn't always have somebody to give up, and so they get stuck with these long sentences, and the big fish walk away with a shorter sentence. We see that time and time again, and it's disgusting.
Indeed, when you're talking about flipping people. So, Kevin, what would you like to see happen? What can people in Idaho do to help?
Well, Idaho is actually considering, you have a couple representatives right now, Republican and Democrat, who are offering legislation to reform Idaho's state mandatory sentencing laws for drugs to give judges more discretion in cases where there's no violence or, you know, the person's not a kingpin or used a gun. So we think that that makes sense. And at the federal level, they should support efforts, you know, to get rid of these strict federal mandatory sentences. Again, that bear no relation. They're not making us safer. By locking up low-level offenders, we're diverting resources that could go into prosecuting and you know, investigating rape and murder and other more serious offenses. So we really got this backwards. So just be engaged, you know, join FAM would be great, and support our efforts in at the state level.
And if people would like to join, what can they do?
They should go to fam.org, www.famm.org, and just learn more about the issue and then decide if you want to get involved. But like I said, there's efforts going on in Idaho and across the country, and we need support.
Kevin Ring, we'd love to have you back. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we move on. Let's go to Eric in Kuna, who's been very patient with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Eric.
Hey, morning, Kevin. Yeah, I've actually been pretty patient. I actually wrote a couple of things down because I didn't want to miss what I was going to say. First of all, I don't typically call people out by name, but last Friday, Mr. Liberal Steve called me out by name, and of course he took what I said out of context. I said that I don't really feel the need to carry a gun here in Boise, Idaho. That doesn't mean I haven't carried. That doesn't mean I wouldn't. That doesn't mean I don't. I believe in guns. Kind of adult. I grew up hunting, and Liberal Steve said that, I think everybody else is going to protect me. That's not what I think at all. That's a typical idiot taking things out of context and hearing with one ear. You should listen to my words for exactly what they are. I never said that people around me, like my nephew and my friends that carry a concealed, are going to protect me. I never said that. I feel totally safe because I trust in God, number one. Okay? That's my first protection. And if Boise gets to the point where I feel like I have to carry a gun, I will. So Liberal Steve, you need to put the dope pipe down and pull your head out of your bummy, and don't be calling me out by name. I did not appreciate that. With all your harebrained crap, I've never called you out by name. So, listen with both ears. Okay, CNN seems to be narrating. CNN's like the reporter in your head, telling you what you're seeing. You need to listen to people's words for what they are. Anyway, now back to what I was going to really talk about here. Let's talk about these protests, these marches, these offended kids. Because some guy said some congressman, wherever it was, I heard our local news talking about it, offended themselves like, wah. Oh, and you're going to be out on the march already? I can't believe it. I mean, what are they protesting? They're marching. They're marching for government to take guns. So what are these people saying? I mean, do these people really understand what they're saying? What they're saying is, I trust all of government and every single facet of government to have all the guns, and because I trust the government to have all the guns more than my fellow citizens. That's what they're really saying. They don't even know what they're saying. It's fools. You know what I mean? It's absolutely ridiculous. Now, you don't have to be a gun enthusiast. You don't even have to believe, and you don't even have to personally carry a gun, or if you're not a gun person, that's fine. But if you're an American, you should believe in our right to bear arms, because our right to bear arms, we're one of the last countries here on planet Earth where we can freely buy weapons, and that's what makes our country the most powerful country in the world. Well, because
I agree. Now, Eric, hold on. Let me ask you to respond to this individual.
Sure.
This isn't about the GOP. This isn't about the Democrats. This is about the adults. We feel neglected, and at this point, you're either with us or against us.
What would you say to that kid if he came up to you in Kuna?
If he came up to me and said, look, he said, I mean, what was he saying anyway? You're either with us or against us. Who's he talking to? He doesn't even, what would I say to him? I don't know what I would say. I just sit there and look at him and say, now I want you to look at your words and step out of your little bubble if you can and look at yourself in third person and really think about what you're saying. What you're saying is, you guys are all saying Donald Trump, Hitler and stuff. Well, if you're going to go out there and say, hey, Donald, come on, man, come take all the guns. I get a great idea, Kevin. This is funny, and this will appease all these fools. I was telling my nephew this the other day. I got an idea. Why don't we just outlaw the AR-15? Now, think about what I'm saying. I didn't say outlaw the 223. The company that makes AR-15, for a couple of years, they can make a a wooden stock with a regular mag capacity that an AR-15, just a regular rifle, because that's all an AR-15 is. They're a small rodent gun, really, just with a high velocity. It's nothing powerful. Anyway, so why don't we outlaw the AR-15 and everybody on CNN? Well, we've outlawed the AR-15. But we're not going to outlaw the 223. We're not going to outlaw any other gun. We're just going to outlaw that one AR-15 model for a couple of years. Just do a P-Valley proof. And we can watch them cheer, and we can just laugh, because they don't even know what the heck they're saying. They don't know anything about gun legality. They have no clue.
Eric, that's a great point. I got to run, but thank you.
Hey, thanks a lot, Kevin. Man, keep up the good work. You're awesome. You're the best, man. You're the best. You're the best radio, most entertaining talk show that I listen to. I mean, better than TV. But anyway, keep up the good work. Love you, buddy.
Love you, Eric. Thank you. 580-5436. 580-KIDO. Coming up next.
One job in America, the point of person is someone who doesn't understand the people and really don't give a about the people.
But wait, there's more gripping insight. ESPN host Carrie Champion asked James and fellow NBA star Kevin Durant about what she described as Trump's racist comments.
I feel like our team as a country is not ran by a great coach.
It's not even a surprise when he says something. It's not even a surprise. It's like laughable. It's like
it's laughable.
It's laughable and it's scary.
But it's also scary.
Right,
because I shouldn't be numb to your racist
comments.
Right. By the way, this is what's wrong with ESPN and everything on ESPN. It's all about the social justice warriors, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and this is our own Fox colleague, Laura Ingraham, who got into trouble for saying something that we've been saying for quite some time, but I won't spoil it for you. By the way, when you hear Fox News on the radio, you're listening to KIDO Talk Radio.
Right.
I shouldn't be numb to your behavior.
I'm numb to this commentary, like, must they run their mouths like that? Unfortunately, a lot of kids and some adults take these ignorant comments seriously. Look, there might be a cautionary lesson in LeBron for kids. This is what happens when you attempt to leave high school a year early to join the NBA. And it's always unwise to seek political advice from someone who gets paid $100 million a year to bounce a ball. Oh, and LeBron and Kevin, you're great players, but no one voted for you. Millions elected Trump to be their coach. So keep the political commentary to yourself, or as someone once said, shut up and dribble.
580-5436, 580-KIDO. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio.
And it's always unwise to seek political advice from someone who gets paid $100 million a year to bounce a ball. Oh, and LeBron and Kevin, you're great players, but no one voted for you. Millions elected Trump to be their coach. So keep the political commentary to yourself, or as someone once said, shut up and dribble.
There we have it from our friend Laura Ingraham. Good morning, Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. It was amazing over the weekend to hear the pundits in the sports media world try and deal with Laura Ingraham. And many of them, were going after her, calling her names. Here's the deal with Laura Ingraham. She clerked for Clarence Thomas. There is no racism in her comments. And it's basically what we said 2 months ago when we said, look, just play Born to Run, clown. Just please play Born to Run. These people that live in these exotic homes and everything else is amazing to me, that they can come down and they're not elected. But when you get into the political arena, LeBron, Kevin, and everyone else, then you should expect people to come back at you. Now, the untold story of LeBron James, and again, we're not going to go to sports sniffing center here, but I do know a little bit about LeBron. We were born in the same town, and a friend of mine tipped me off to him when he was in 6th grade. He was a phenom. And LeBron James has done a lot of good. And unlike a lot of NBA athletes, LeBron James gives back to his community, even when he left Cleveland, and he's not from Cleveland. He's from a town to the south, Akron. Now, you might say, what's the difference? It's like the difference between Boise and Meridian, right? Cleveland is full of whatever, and people in Akron still call themselves the town, the rubber capital of the world. And LeBron James came up from humble means. And, he supported Hillary Clinton. He supported wearing safety pins so people could feel safe after Hillary Clinton left or lost office or whatever you want to call it. And I can recall a friend of mine went to school with LeBron's mother, and they had some rough times. And LeBron has never gotten into any trouble. He's an astute businessman, sometimes too good, because, you know, he shifts the power from the owners to the players. And the guy's mentally sharp. LeBron benefited by people in the community seeing value in him, educating him. He went to a private high school, one of the best in the city, one of the best in the state, St. Vincent St. Mary's. He still goes back there. They call it home. Now, St. Vincent St. Mary's gives scholarships and such, predominantly white place, right? And so when LeBron talks about the experience of growing up, and he had a hard childhood, he does have that experience, but it was also people saw something in him, and he benefited from his immense talents. So again, it's a challenge when you have these athletes jump in. I believe that just like we don't really talk about sports because it doesn't interest you here, there are other great places to go for sports. Professional athletes should stick to X's and O's and who's going to win the All-Star game. I agree with Laura Ingraham. In fact, entertainers, the same thing. Please just play Born to Run. I don't want to hear, the Dixie Chicks or Bruce Springsteen or the rappers or whomever give us political statements. You're paid to take us away from that world, and you're paid incredibly well. Wealth that most of us will never understand. But when you jump into politics, you're going to take a smack. And to go after Laura Ingraham goes back to our point, which I'll get to in 2 seconds. Time for traffic and weather.
Me of not honoring my commitment to be in a meeting. Abortion is murder. I stand against it. I am a Roman Catholic. I'm a conservative Republican. I think what you guys do stinks.
That is your choice.
You're damn right it's my choice, so stay out of my office.
You shouldn't make it other people's.
Next time you walk in my office, you're going to be dealing with ISP.
I don't think so.
And there we have Senator Dan Foreman, who has made national news for his comments standing down to the folks from the University of Idaho supporting Planned Parenthood. Look, you go into any congressional office, any state senate office, sometimes they'll see you, sometimes they won't. That's just how it is. And you have to accept the rules of those engagements, okay? They're busy folks. Now, I've been in John Edwards' office, and I've had the people there, the former senator of North Carolina, lie to my face when he was hiding in the back, right? Because I'm an intimidating cream puff kind of fellow. But that's just how it is. So these students come in, all of a sudden, they want to confront this guy, Senator Foreman. He lets them have it. And now all of a sudden, he's in the wrong. Laura Ingraham calls out LeBron James and says, look, man, shut up and dribble. And she's in the wrong. Well, where is the idea of let's hear all sides? If you're pro-gun, does that mean that you're a bad person? I think in the climate that we're living today, unfortunately it is. And this is the scary part. And we've been talking about this all the time. And that's why I always say, I'm blessed to be here each and every day because the left would like to shut down this show. Look, we've been a target of the left for many, many years across the country and here locally. It has happened. And so every day is a blessing because they want to shut down your voice, the ability to have a platform such as this so that we can go back and forth, so we can say, look, don't take the weapons. So we can say, look, being pro-life is where it's at. So we can say to ourselves, look, these are ideas. Let's have a healthy debate, and let's not try and silence debate, which we seem to be happening all the time. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. So getting back to this issue, again, we see how things are positioned, where it's the left that is right. And if you're right, you're always wrong. It doesn't make much sense. Coming up, we're going to try and right that wrong. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Good.
And coming up, John Decker will join us exclusively from the White House. Phone number's here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Also coming up, we're going to have Troy McClain will be joining us. He'll be joining us Wednesday morning at 8 o'clock. You remember Troy, the winner of The Apprentice. He is supporting Dr. Tommy Ahlquist. We'll get his thoughts on Dr. Ahlquist and President Trump. It seems, 15, 16, almost 20 years ago when Troy McClain was on The Apprentice. I still can remember watching that program and going, who's this guy from Idaho? So it's been a while since we've had Troy on, so we will have him on, and really looking forward to hearing what he has to say, and that'll be tomorrow. Also coming up, our great friend Lars Larson. That's right, Lars Larson will join us live from the Conservative Political Action Committee, otherwise known as CPAC. He'll join us coming up from there on Friday, and we look forward to that. And Russ Fulcher will join us this week as well. So we've got a big week planned here at 580-5436-580-KIDO. Coming up, much more of your phone calls. We'll give John Decker a couple more minutes, and then if not, we'll go to your calls. Now is a great time to line up and give us your thoughts on a variety of issues. Number one being Chuck Schumer having this to say concerning the right to keep and bear arms.
They make things up. They say if you're for a background check, you're for taking away the hunting rifle that your Uncle Willie gave you. That's bunk. They scare people. And they are wrong, and Congress ought to have the courage to do the right thing.
And what would be the right thing, Senator Schumer?
The FBI called for, they were told about this. Now we learn that the Governor Scott's office was told about this, the mental health office. When you're told of these situations, we have to be more careful and more stringent given the availability of guns. But if AR-15s weren't available, that would also go a long way to solving the problem. You need to do both. One is not an excuse for the other.
And there we have it, of course, that has been floated on the airwaves here and other places where people are talking about banning the AR-15. With us now for insight, analysis, and reporting, our great friend John Decker from Fox News Radio, exclusively from the White House, right here at KIDO Talk Radio. John, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. How are you?
Not bad. I don't know if we've talked since the Super Bowl. If not, congratulations.
Oh, well, thanks. Yeah, it was a big day. I was even up in Philadelphia for the victory parade, so it was a very cool day, very cool week for me.
Well, we're happy for you. For Patriot Nation, not so much. We're still kind of licking our wounds and wondering what's going to happen to Gronk.
Right. I think a lot of people are wondering that. But look, he's talented, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's back for another year with the Patriots competing for another Super Bowl.
Indeed. So, John Decker, an interesting day and a never-ending news cycle in the city of Washington, D.C. Certainly many people, as you've been reporting all morning long, concerned about the Second Amendment. Will there be any legislation in following what happened in Parkland, Florida?
Good question. There's a bipartisan bill the president seems to be supporting. That bill was introduced by Republican Texas Senator John Cornyn and Democrat Senator from Connecticut. And so that is the bill the president thinks is one that he could support. It would provide for better background checks on individuals that wish to purchase guns, whether they be handguns or the kind of weapon that was used in that Florida mass shooting. But look, we've seen momentum before. We saw momentum after the shooting that happened in Connecticut a few years ago when President Obama was in office, and nothing really became of it. So, look, we'll have to wait and see what happens. There's a lot that's on the plate of Congress right now. This is just another item. But perhaps those individuals that were so impacted by the shooting in Florida, will really make their voices known and force lawmakers to do something as it relates to some meaningful legislation.
John Decker, how tough is it to really fast-track legislation? Obviously, the news cycle is overheated, certainly by the victims and the continued victims of gun violence. But really, as a veteran of Washington reporting for many, many years, how tough really is it to get something done in such a quick of a time?
Well, it's very tough. Legislation just doesn't happen. Legislation has to go through a process, which includes hearings. And so, these things don't happen overnight. There needs to be hearings in both the House and the Senate. You need to marry up the legislation that has now already been introduced in the Senate, and there's not a companion bill right now in the House. So this is not, if someone is looking for a quick fix to this in a legislative sense, that's very unlikely.
John Decker, anything else that we should be looking out for this week coming out of the White House?
Well, I think that, we're waiting to see if the president continues to focus on this issue. We know that tomorrow he'll be meeting with young people as part of a listening session here at the White House. So we'll see what comes out of that. And then we also know that there will be a march that has been organized, or that is being organized, that will take place here in Washington, D.C. on, I believe it's March the 24th. So this issue will remain in the news, with good reason, and we'll be following it very closely, Kevin.
Yeah, I'm surprised Omarosa hasn't mentioned you on Big Brother, but I'm still watching.
Okay. I don't know if I'm going to be a topic of conversation for her. I do not watch that show, so if that happens, you're going to be among the first people to let me know that. All right.
Thank you, John. You have a great day.
Thanks, Kevin. Have a good one. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, our great friend John Decker. Joining us now, the publisher of the Gem State Patriot, Tea Party Bob. Good morning, sir. Thanks for your patience.
Good morning, Mr. Miller. Exciting show this morning. An awful lot of things going on, huh?
Lots of comments and lots of callers.
Well, what seems to get lost in the diatribes about banning assault weapons is the inconvenient fact that a vast majority of the mass shooters use handguns and not assault rifles. The Congressional Research Study found from 1999 to 2013, assault rifles were used in 27% of mass shootings. And even if you go back to 1982, it's 24%. And a mass shooting is defined as killing 4 or more people in a relatively public place. Go back to the Virginia Tech shooting, and the guy who did that one, he was using a semi-automatic pistol. As for the protest by the kids, if you look deep enough, you'll discover that they're being organized by the usual big money grabbers like Bloomberg and Soros. Banning assault weapons is like banning obese people from eating with forks and spoons. It's going to change nothing. What we should be looking for is how to protect our children from the mentally ill killers by ending the gun-free zones and putting armed guards in our schools. Why is it that it's okay to protect our public figures and our political officials, but we can't afford to protect our children? Maybe if we paid more attention to the drugs that are being prescribed to our children, we would find out that they are the real problem, not the guns. What we're not hearing from the fake media is the Parkland, Florida shooter's aunt related that he was on medication for emotional issues. Looking back at other shootings, the Columbine shooter, Eric Harris, was on antidepressants, and so is Adam Lanza from Sandy Hook. The list goes on and on. If you do the research, you'll find that in most every case of these mass shootings, drugs were involved. So is the real problem guns or is it drugs? I don't hear anyone talking about banning psychotropic drugs for our kids. I maintain that it's the drugs that have been proven to be the mind-altering problem, and they passed out like candy by the doctors. We need to stop medicating our kids because it's an easy solution and instead get to the root cause of their problems with adequate counseling. That's it, buddy. That's all I have.
Well, thank you for the call. Maybe we'll see you tonight.
Yes, definitely we'll be there.
All right, Tea Party Bob, we appreciate it. Let's go to Pro-Life with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Pro-Life.
Yes, I wasn't listening. I had to be sleeping because I got up in the middle of the night. My wife told me you were talking about Dan Johnson, and Dan Johnson from Moscow is the very best person in our state legislature. Now, I watched a news clip of him. Some students were trying to get him to want to support birth control pills in the universities.
Actually, it's Dan Foreman.
Oh, Dan Foreman, yeah. All right. Well, anyway, and I watched that, and they could not believe that he wouldn't support that. And the reason he doesn't support it is because birth control pills are an abortifacient. He believes that abortion is murder, and when a woman takes a birth control pill, it tells her body that she's already pregnant, so a child can be, sperm can be made, it can't implant, so it dies of starvation.
Right. Let's share the clip for people that are wondering what we're talking about.
Right.
And you want to talk about disrespect on the roof? I should play back that conversation for you, accusing me of being a liar, accusing me of not honoring my commitment to be in a meeting. Abortion is murder. I stand against it. I am a Roman Catholic. I'm a conservative Republican. I think what you guys do stinks.
That is your choice.
You're damn right it's my choice, so stay out of my office.
You shouldn't make it other people.
Next time you walk in my office, you're going to be dealing with ISP.
There we have it. Of course, it looks like it's cut where the from the Idaho Statesman, where they were laughing at him and saying, "Oh, I don't think so, buddy." Look, lack of respect for authority. These kids haven't accomplished anything, and here they are trying to demean a senator. And look, pro-life.
Yeah.
You and I have been at this for quite some time.
Right.
And by the way, pro-life, what radio station are you calling into right now?
580 KIDO. 107.5. It's the best.
With Kevin Miller in the morning.
Kevin Miller in the morning, yeah.
Okay, so now that we've got that out of the way to make sure that people aren't confused that they're listening to KIDO Talk Radio.
Right.
Let's go back to what they did to Chuck Winder. Remember Chuck Winder tried to pass pro-life legislation, and MSNBC called him an extremist, called him this, that, and the other. Now, Chuck Winder is a great guy, a wonderful state senator, a man of principle, a quiet man. And yet the viciousness from the left that they're going to go after Senator Foreman on, what we see, it's just how they play the game. And it was the national media that targeted Chuck Winder, Senator Winder, and we're seeing it now. This is not a news story. In fact, I don't know if the parents of these kids would be happy that they skip school to come down and harass a sitting state senator.
Yeah, I totally agree. And they have their talking points. And, when Kevin Durant and LeBron James say something, and then Laura Ingraham opposes that, then she's a racist. But she would have said that if it would have been white basketball players. It's got nothing to do with race. She's just being principled and standing up for the president and standing up for principle. So they are just not very smart people. That's all I can say. And those students aren't very smart. Now, it would have been nice if Dan Foreman, if Dan Foreman would have had enough time to have a discussion with him and talk to him about how birth control pills are an abortifacient. But he didn't have time, I guess. But anyway, he's the best. I've encouraged him to run for higher office, and I hope he does sometime.
Pro-life, thank you for listening to KIDO Talk Radio.
Yeah, the best in the West.
God bless.
All right.
You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Thank you, Ray Amaya, once again. Let's go to Jim in Middleton with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Kevin. I just wanted to chime in on the subject matter there. As I mentioned before, what these politicians and a lot of people are doing, bringing all of the citizens, NRA members, and so forth down to the level, of these perpetrators. They don't understand what they're doing by insulting people this way and lumping them into this situation. And this needs to be shoved back in their face. Again, these guns, the M1 carbine, the Thompson 45, and many other semi-automatics of high-capacity guns, they've been around in the 20s and 30s, Kevin. And I have never heard anyone mention why now and not then. And back then, there was far less restrictions to obtain a firearm than there is today. Anyway, I wanted to share that with folks, and it needs to be pushed back that these politicians with their answers are very irresponsible. And again, as I mentioned, wherever progressive liberalism goes, cultural decay follows in every instance. I'll see you tonight, Kevin.
See you tonight, Jim. Thank you.
You bet.
580-5436, 580-KIDO. Let's go to Dwight in Boise on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Dwight.
Well, good morning, Kevin. I'd like to make a comment, just kind of a general comment, but specifically aimed at what my good friend Pro-Life just said. I disagree with what he said. He said they're not smart. The liberals are not smart. The liberals are evil, but they are smart. And where they are smarter than we are is the fact that they are consistently on the attack. That's what they were doing with the pro-life legislator in Idaho. That's what they're doing with the kid that was trying to shame people because they were not banning assault weapons. What we need to do is go on offense and discover exactly what their tactics are. They're running the same tactics over and over and over. And the reason that I am saying that they're smart is because they consistently tend to win with a weak hand. We have the strong hand, but we're not using it. Might I suggest, Kevin, that you have some conversation on your show where you ask people what we could do to improve our tactics and our strategies. And if I can just change the subject, I would really also like to request that you have on your show a debate between Mark, the Article 5 guy, and also the proponent from the John Birch Society. I've talked to both of those men. I've heard them speak, and there is great confusion there. And I put it to the John Birch guy. I said, why don't you guys need to have a debate head-to-head, because you're basically calling each other liars. And we need to get to the bottom of what the truth is. And I think this would be a really good thing. You've had both those guys on your show, and I'm just asking you to, you may have no interest in doing this, but I'm just asking you to consider doing that. I think it is something that could become a big deal on YouTube, the replay of the debate that you could have on your radio program.
Dwight, that's a good point. And look, Mark Meckler and Tom Munns, if we can get Mark back in from California, we will do that. And that's a great idea. Thank you. Let's go to
you, Kevin. How are you this morning?
Blessed to be here. And you, Shannon?
Likewise. Very happy to be here. So I have an idea about using the liberal or Democrat agenda, their narrative against them regarding further restricting access to guns by law-abiding American citizens. And that is asking them, they believe that President Trump and his administration are monsters or tyrants. Why would they want his administration, his government, to possess all the guns?
Oh, that's a good point.
If he is such a monster and his administration is so tyrannical, why would they want that government to have all the guns? Would they not want to have possession themselves to defend themselves? And I just think we should turn their narrative around on them. Put it on them.
Shannon, thank you for listening to KIDO Talk Radio. We'll throw that out to everybody.
You're welcome. Enjoy your day.
Thank you. Okay, time for traffic and weather together.